Part 2, the eagle. Positioned at a higher vantage point, the eagle has a strong sense of influence and power. If improperly integrated, this can lead to toxic domination, preventing divine order from raining its blessings down. I'm amazed at how stupid bugs are. Like, this guy, there's an open door right there, bro. What are you doing? Chapter 13. Back in business. After Carlbrook, I returned with my mom to her house in Tampa, right next to the Howard Franklin Bridge. I had a few weeks to reacclimate before enrolling as a sophomore at Plant High. Since I started at a new school in the middle of the year, making friends was difficult at first. Cliques had already formed, and I was coming from an incredibly toxic social environment of Carlbrook. This created a strong sense of social anxiety. I felt alienated from my peers because most of them hadn't experienced anything remotely similar to what I had. If I wasn't convinced before going to Virginia, Carlbrook had drilled the idea that I was an outcast, a criminal, a misfit, firmly into my consciousness by the time that I returned. To cope with the social struggles, I adopted a hard-edged gangster persona as a front, which I had basically already had before that. It became a mask to protect the tender face behind it, the one we all share, the desires to be loved and to be accepted. The good thing about having such a thugged out personality at the time was that it made the selection of potential friends much smaller. It was clear who would vibe with me and who wouldn't. One of the first friends that I made at Plant High School was Brian. We met in Mrs. Rivera's Spanish class. He was a white boy with floppy brown hair wearing baggy t-shirt and gold chains. He caught my attention when I first heard him talk. He had one earbud in, rapping along a Gucci Mane song. Spit in your face. I might spit in your face. Gucci Mane here real nasty. I might spit in your face. Spit in your face. I might spit in your face. It's my childhood right there, bro. He bobbed his head to the lyrics. I felt a rush of hope. I knew he'd be a good friend because he was the only other ratchet, stupid, barred out sounding kid in there. By the way, he's dead now. R.I.P. Wanting to get his attention, I mimicked the sound that is in part of the song. He turned around, his face lit up. Yo, what's good, bruh? You like Gucci? He asked. Yeah, dog. Yeah, I'm Connor, I said, sticking out my hand to dap him up. He turned slightly in his chair and sneaked a glance at the teacher. Damn, bro, Miss Rivera bad as fuck. Yeah, bro, she really is. Just like that, we hit it off, making conversation about Gucci, our hot teacher, and all the typical classroom banter our type would get into. Through I met Wilson Myers, a scrawny little hoodlum with a nasally voice, and Elijah, the 6'3" light-skinned master basketball player who would soon introduce me to one of the greatest friends that I've made in this life, Capone. The day I met Capone, I was hanging out with Wilson, Elijah, and this other kid named Adam at Wilson's house. Elijah wanted me to meet his boy Capone, who he said lived near me, so we all headed to Swan Circle Park to smoke with him and buy some weed from him. Adam was irritated because he knew that we were using him for his car, but once we promised him weed, like we always did, he agreed to drive us there. The park was small but lush, surrounded by trees. We were sitting on the horizontal tree by a drainage ditch when Capone showed up. He was mixed with a big goofy afro. Elijah called out, "Yo, Capone!" And Capone walking over greeting everybody and then dapped me up. In the moment, I felt a sense of familiarity, similar to when I had met Miles. I could see the anger and rage of feeling misunderstood and cast out in his eyes. There was history there, a depth that only suffering could produce. I thought to myself, here I am once again with my tribe of misfits and savages. These people have been through harder things than most in the country could imagine. This man is going to be my brother, and we're going to make a lot of money together. That's what I thought in my head. After some small talk, Capone pulled out a blunt out of his pocket. "Man, nobody wants your pocket weed," said Elijah. Shook his head, lit the blunt, and replied, "Nah, man, this weed is straight up organic, freshly grown, made by some of the most advanced growers. It's the best loud that you'll blow on." He passed the blunt to Elijah and said, "Y'all are gonna love it." And we did. In fact, his weed was so good that I started buying from him regularly. The first time that I bought from him, I was broke because I had no income at Carlbrook, so helped me sell some of my watches at a pawn shop. He ran a funny little operation out of his room. If you wanted weed, you had to hop through his small bedroom window. His room always smelled like weed and was a mess, with trash, food, clothes everywhere. He also had a scrunchy-faced, half-blind pug that was always wheezing and grunting. On any given day, there could be up to 10 kids packed in that tiny room, all trying to score some bud. Sometimes the chaos would set his mom off, and she would scream, "You f***ers! You motherfuckers! Be quiet! I'll kill you!" When that happened, everyone would go silent and could freeze for a moment, disassociating, but then he'd flick on his lighter and we'd all keep smoking. That was such a fucked up situation. The more I went to his house, the closer we became. We started smoking together regularly and bonded over the hardships that we'd faced. I opened up about my trauma and how it felt like I was constantly battling, and shared his own struggles. His dad had been to prison for much of his childhood, was still in prison, and they didn't stay in touch. Now his dad's out of prison. His mom and stepdad were a bit crazy too. Not a bit. They were nuts. R.I.P. Dwight. Despite our tougher backgrounds, we found freedom through self-expression and art. We'd spend hours on his bed with a microphone and a laptop, running Fruity Loops, freestyling over beats he made. It was also with Capone that I started experimenting with psychedelics, which led to early experience in higher states of consciousness that would shape my future. Curious about the drugs and impressed by the profit margins, I began selling them too. Before long, we became like the Pancho and Lefty of Plant City High School, moving bags of weed and psychedelics to the preppy white kids at school. Acid, ketamine, Molly, lots of mushrooms, DMT. That was the extent of Capone's criminal activity though. He wasn't into the harder crowds I found myself in later, the ones that robbed and got into malicious crimes. Because of this, our friendship went through phases. And then did go through some crazy times. He would never rob and shit, but he would get barred out and he got in some trouble. When I drifted into those crowds, kept to himself, but no matter how much time passed or how far we drifted, I always knew that he was my brother, and I still do. Around the time that I met Capone, Miles reached out and invited me to go to Zen Awakening with him. I had never been to a festival before, but I love drugs and I love music and I love Miles, so I was in. Plus, he had an extra ticket. I was so excited that I went to school that day on LSD before telling my dad I was leaving. Knowing that he really couldn't stop me, he let me go. I ordered an Uber to his dad's house in Orlando. This is actually in St. Pete High, where I only was there for maybe a couple weeks and I was fully back into trapping at this point again. Around the time that I met Miles, when I got there, I was pleasantly surprised. Miles stood at the open door of this huge mansion on a massive lake, grinning with an iconic smile of his. Seeing him like that cut through any apprehension and filled me with joy. Here we are again, I thought. I got out of the Uber and ran up and hugged him. Up close, I could tell that he looked healthier and more alive than he did at Carlbrook. He was wearing a Grateful Dead t-shirt, which I asked him about. He said that they were one of the sickest bands ever that he had put me onto. After greeting, I got a short tour of his dad's house, all the soundtracks of the Grateful Dead's Europe 72 album. Both the music and the house impressed me. The melodies tickled something deep in my brain, and every bedroom looked like a master suite. Truly impeccable. That's why money's amazing, as long as you can have an open heart still. We ended the tour at his dad's dab rig, where we lubricated our minds for the adventure ahead. While we smoked, Miles disappeared and came back with some floppy wetsuit draped over him. He said, "Put this on," he said, handing it to me. I chuckled, "What the fuck is this for?" He pointed out the sliding glass door to the backyard where there were a few jet skis and a boat. After a high-fueled jet ski adventure, we got a ride from one of Miles' friends to Zen meditation fields where the festival was held. And this is before Zen was what Zen is now. This was the first Zen Awakening, where it was on a whole nother fucking level. The next 3 days were a blur of amazing music and tripping balls on shrooms, Molly, acid, and ketamine. Miles and I practically chanted "tripping balls. Tripping balls. We're tripping balls." The whole entire time. It's because of those inside jokes that only makes sense when you're on the same trip. Yeah, so if you think I'm crazy, that's why. One night, we were at a stage called Incendia, giant jungle gym looking structure that shot fire to the beat of the music. A yoga-toned Burning Man type of guy offered me free MDMA. I could feel his kindness radiating through the gesture and gladly took the pill. Soon, waves of euphoria washed over me, melting away any mental barriers. I looked around at the beautiful people and their wild outfits moving to the beat. I turned and I saw Miles next to me. I love them all so much. I thought I noticed a couple embracing in the crowd and nearby a group of friends dancing together, locked in each other's eyes. Now I remember that I thought love is the key. At that moment, Miles tapped my shoulder. I need to go to the bathroom, bro. I'll come with you, I said, and we weaved through the crowd out into the open space. We struggled to make it to the bathroom signs through the breathing visuals of the drugs. There, Miles said, pointing out a few porta potties near a big tent. He sped, walked up, and I followed. As we got closer, I heard a loud voice coming from the tent. Free dabs here! Free dabs here! Come and get your free dabs here! While Miles was using the bathroom, I couldn't resist the call, and I yanked him along with me to go towards the tent once he was done. The tent was decked out, fluffy carpets, mattresses scattered around. In the center stood a strange tall man wearing a black trench coat, looking like the stereotypical drug dealer from a suburban parent's nightmares. Yo, are you the man with the free dabs? I asked. Yes, sir, he said in a salesman voice. Would you like one? Hell yeah, I nodded. He brought over this crazy rig, lit up the glass, and handed me a small spoon with wax. I inhaled deeply. Fragrant smoke filled my lungs, spilling out into the moonlight. I coughed. Pretty good stuff, eh? Yeah, that's fucking gas, I wheezed. My name is Fubu, which years later, he was a part of like the groups of traffickers. And of course, I'm not going to mention any active name ones. So if anyone I know who's watching this, that's like still living that life, I would never like mention people who are doing like current things that are not dead already. So that's the reason why I mentioned these names. So Fubu, who's dead now, crazy turn of events. That was when I met him, and he died 7 years later, something like that. I'm Connor. Pleased to meet you, Fubu said, pulling me in for a hug. Connor, I got everything you need. Anything you need, I got. I grew this weed, made the wax myself. I've got LSD, mushrooms, MDMA, meth, ketamine, heroin, you name it, I have it, he said. Thanks, I said. After Miles got his dab, we slumped onto one of the carpets. My lungs burned from all the dancing had made my body tense and tired. I could feel the MDMA wearing off and a creeping dissatisfaction start to arise. All of a sudden, I became aware of how shallow my breathing was. I took a deep breath in the cool November air, filling my lungs. The anxious come down faded a bit, and time slowed. Holy shit, I thought. Is it really that easy? I took another deep breath, and the pleasure grew as my mind stilled. All I really have to do is breathe, huh? A deep sense of gratitude washed over me. I was thankful for Miles, for the festival, for everything. As I looked at the cheerful crowds, I thought, I'm going to bounce around festivals for the rest of my life and make money doing it. Damn, we're like moving through this shit, bro. Flow state supreme. Let's fucking go. Chapter 14, Pop-Up Trap House.